steps forward to take the £40 million kick. A baby.
Bottled, isn't it? That is bottled.
A mere baby when Birmingham City were last promoted to the top flight in 1985. A lifetime ago. Darren Carter for the Premiership. The Premiership!
Darren Carter joining us this morning. I think you've probably played in every league, haven't you, Carts?
Nearly. I was talking about this the other day. League One is the only I've leapfrogged or missed out so far.
Yoz, did you play in all of the leagues? You're on mute. Sorry, Yoz.
Sorry, I was on mute there, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I was the same. I leapfrogged League One as well. I didn't manage to play in League One. Played in all the others.
Right. Well, big thank you for Darren. Played in the Premier League. We're going to hear a bit more about his career. Played in the Championship. Missed out League One. Played League Two, and still doing a bit at the tender age of what year? 36, 37?
37 now. Yeah.
37. And still playing. So a fantastic career, fantastic professional, and delighted to have you on board. Thanks for Coach Chris Holloway, who's organised this today. Big thank you. So, Darren, if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving us a summary of your career, what it was like growing up, and playing for the different teams, and your career really, and maybe a bit about your personal life, your childhood growing up, who your influences were, etc. That'd be great. Thank you. Yeah,
I think probably start that I was born in Solihull, which is obviously right next to Birmingham. I was brought up a Birmingham fan. Never really had a choice. My dad and all my family were staunch Birmingham fans, so I think I went down and watched my first game when I was 5 or 6, and that was it. Then I was a fully fledged fan, a season ticket holder at Birmingham all through sort of my school years, and then sort of started playing Sunday League football for a local side round by me in Solihull, and from there that's when sort of probably from about 9 or 10 scouts would come and watch these games on a Sunday, and find where my dad was, my mum and dad, and then start inviting me to come to some trials to train. So it was, at the time, it was Villa and Birmingham. So I had the choice, and I don't know if any of the guys realised the rivalry between the two clubs. So it was never ever really a choice for me. It was always going to be Birmingham. So I think it was at 12 I started training at Birmingham, sort of alongside playing with my Sunday League team. And then when it got to 14, it was time to sign schoolboy forms. And Birmingham offered me schoolboy forms. Wolves actually at the time were interested and actually offered me schoolboy forms. But again, it was an easy choice for me to pick Birmingham. So for my last 2 years at school, I was then signed as a schoolboy for Birmingham. So obviously doing my schoolwork and then training with Birmingham on the evenings and playing on Sundays. Got to 16, and that's when I was offered a full scholarship then with Birmingham. So left school, went straight into the academy at Birmingham. And my pathway to that point had been sort of, I was still a fan. I was still going down to all the games, and went straight into full-time then as a scholarship or as a scholar at Birmingham. That's where I had the pleasure then of meeting Hughesy, Yozza. Quite funny, really. Obviously, I've been a fan for many years, obviously, and Yozza had been at the club, obviously, a decent amount of time by then. So Yozza was someone, obviously, I looked up to, and to then be as a scholar, be around the training ground, seeing himself, seeing other players that had watched from the stand for 2-3 years. I think there was a fair few players. Yozza wasn't in the squad that had been there a few years previous to that. I had my first year as a scholar and progressed really well. Played pretty much under 19s football. Played in the reserve team as it was back then. There was no 23s. It was a reserve team, and just sort of progressed, pretty well. My academy manager at the time was a guy called Brian Eastick, who was really pushing me towards the first team, and I managed to then train with the first team a fair few times. So completed my first year as a scholar, sort of turned 17, and it was really in my second year then that really, things started to accelerate for me. The manager at the time at Birmingham was Trevor Francis, and he had me in a few squads. I played in a few pre-season friendlies, and sort of then was in and around it for probably 2-3 months. Again, getting to train with Yozza and the first team, brought me on leaps and bounds, really, confidence-wise, ability-wise. Sort of I was learning the men's game. I think Yozza can probably, tell you that there was a fair few proper pros in that squad. Would tell you in no uncertain terms if you wasn't doing it right or you wasn't on it. Every day at training, you had to turn up and be on it, and give 100%. So that was great for me. I always say to people, I probably had a real great group of guys at the time to progress me from sort of academy football into men's football. And it got to, I think, the December. So turn of the year in my second year as a scholar. The manager changed. Trevor Francis left the club. Steve Bruce become manager. I think it was one of his first games. Sort of out of the blue, really. Gave me my debut at West Brom at the Hawthorns. This was January 2002. So I'd been sort of halfway through my second year as a scholar, and straight into the hustle and bustle of a local derby again, West Ham. A real sort of feisty atmosphere at the Hawthorns away from home, and that was it. Then literally, I was in the team pretty much for the rest of that season, playing alongside Yozza in centre midfield. And again, I've got to big him up as I always try to. Yozza, as you've probably seen over his career, was a sort of a goal scoring midfielder, did pretty much everything. But I came into the team and I was literally full of energy, wanting to run everywhere. So Yozza had to sort of probably sacrifice. Is that fair?
I had to adjust my game for him. So go and get all the plaudits.
So I've got to give Yozza the credit there. He had to sort of play probably more of a holding role as I was marauding all over the pitch. As I say, full of energy. I just obviously made my debut for my hometown team, and pretty much then that 4 or 5 months was a real whirlwind.
How did your life change at that point then, Carts?
Everything literally did change. Obviously, as I say, I was a scholar, so I was doing my college work alongside training. But again, first team training was always in the mornings, so I had to put a little bit of my college work on hold. So I was trying to play catch up with that as well. But just in general, obviously, all my family, as I said, were Birmingham fans. So as soon as I made my debut at West Brom, it sort of took off. Then I was getting inundated with messages and people obviously wanting to get in touch, and also tickets for games was a real problem. It was just, I just remember it being a real whirlwind. And as I said, my dad was a staunch Blues fan, so he was super proud and wanted me to get different things signed, shirts, and I don't know if Yozza ever remembers, I probably come in every day with something different to sign. So the lads probably got a little bit fed up with me wanting signatures off them all the time. So it really was. I think I was kind of obviously the homegrown lad who come into the squad and made his debut. And I think, you know, fans, especially my family, seeing that as a real route to be really up to date and close to what was happening at the club. So yeah, on the pitch, it pretty much sort of I was focused and just loving life, and off the pitch it was a little bit chaotic, to be honest.
Get a lot of publicity.
Yeah, again, sort of, you know, locally, and then, you know, as the season progressed and I played a few more games, and the team, then we were on a really good run, so we were probably mid-table, and we managed to put a real good run together, push right into the playoff picture. So with that then sort of came, you know, a bit more media attention, not just on myself but the team, and then we got into the playoffs, and again, probably, you know, I've talked about it many times, the years leading up to that, probably 3 or 4 years, and Yozza was obviously a massive part of that. You know, it ended in playoff heartbreak for many of them. You know, I was in the stands watching them, you know, as devastated as probably Yozza was. And so to get back to the playoffs, probably when we wasn't really expected to at a certain stage of that season, we went into the playoffs with real momentum, managed to get ourselves to the finals. Sorry, I've skipped to Yozza, a very, you know, good Yozza goal in the semi-final against Millwall at home. So we drew that 1-1, then we went to Millwall and won a real feisty second leg, 1-0 in the 90th minute, and then went to Cardiff and managed then to win the playoff final, which, you know, probably accumulated into what was probably my best memory in football, really.
Right, brilliant. Thanks for that. So talk us through that. Yoz, you tell us that that was supposed to be your pen, was it, the number 4, and then you moved?
Yeah, it was, and it was.
Whose decision was that to change?
My decision to change. I'd always took number 5 in the penalties. You know, through the years, like Darren mentions, we sort of lost in the playoffs 3 years previous, going into this one. And I think that season that we managed to get up, it just added fuel to the fire. You know, we had a real bulk of experienced lot in there. The change of manager with Steve coming to the club was a big emphasis on us really pushing on. You know, local talent and Darren coming into the fold as well. You know, just added to it. It was just meant to be. It was just added to everything. And like Darren says, we went on an unbelievable run. You know, we were unbeaten in the 13 games going into that playoff final. And we just took that momentum into the game. You know, I thought in the game we were the dominant team, and it just showed the character of the squad we had that year. You know, we actually went, even though we were on top for the majority of the game, in extra time we conceded first. Norwich scored first, and we had to roll our sleeves up and come back, and we did. We equalised through Jeff Horsfield, which went into penalties. And like I said, once the story about the penalties is before the game, the day before, Steve Bruce pulled me when we were practicing penalties, and he wanted Tommy Mooney to be the 5th penalty taker, who was our regular penalty taker at the time. And I took the number 5 penalty in all the shootouts previous, in cup competitions and in playoff games. I enjoyed the excitement, you know, that hero or villain moment, you know, I'd never missed. And I was very confident of scoring if it went to the 5th one. But Steve had his ways. He wanted Tommy to be the 5th. So I said I'd take the 4th. Wasn't happy going into the night before, going into a massive game for the club. Slept on it. Didn't want it to affect my performance, which I hope it didn't. And then went into the game, and albeit throughout the game, Tommy got substituted in the 60th, 70th minute. Darren came on. And then obviously when it went to penalties, my first thought, Mark Bowen, the assistant manager at the time, said, "Who wants war?" And I said, "I want 5. You know, Darren stepped up and said, fair play to him, you know, young boy, stepped up, said he'll take 4. And it was just written in the stars for him, you know. Norwich missed a couple of penalties, and albeit number 4 penalty wins the shootout.
So how old were you then, Carts, at this point?
I was 18, so
Right.
I turned 18 in December. So I'd made my debut obviously then in the January. yeah, as I say, as Yozza says, it just it was meant to be. I think for the team, for me, I know sort of the day ended with obviously me taking that penalty, and it was a moment I'll cherish forever. And I always look back and say to people, people like Yozza, there was people like Martin Granger and Darren Purse, Michael Johnson, guys who had been there through the heartache, as Yozza said, over sort of, it was probably 3 or 4 year span. We'd lost the Worthington Cup final the year before to Liverpool on penalties in the same stadium. So there was just a real massive emotion, I think, for a lot of players on that team to finally get over that hurdle and win promotion. So
had you been practicing penalties the day before as well, or not?
Yeah, we sort of, Steve Bruce always had us in the odds of going from the halfway line. So replicate it as best as you could. Obviously, you can't. There's no fans there or anything, but get your walk to the penalty spot. Get your routine, and Bruce always used to say, make your mind up where you're going to go. Don't change it, and put it where you want. So yeah, we practice them, and really confident, to be honest. Just when we equalised in extra time, I just had a real supreme confidence we were going to win the game. So when it did go to penalties, I just felt like we were going to win. It was meant to be. So I was really confident stepping up and taking one.
I think the experience that we had.
Sorry, go on, Yoz.
I think the experience that we had the year previously, losing to Liverpool, really helped us. We'd been in that situation in front of 80,000 people. We'd gone to sudden death with Liverpool. AJ missed our penalty that day. Carragher scored their winning one. But, that experience, Norwich didn't have that. 12 months prior to us going back into that playoff final, Norwich hadn't had that experience in front of that hostile environment, right in front of all the Birmingham fans who could be hostile at the best of times. And, we had to do it the year previous in front of Liverpool fans. And, we went toe-to-toe with them all the way through until sudden death, and we managed to obviously just miss one. But, Norwich when it came to that critical moment, they just melted. They fair play to Nico Vassin in goal for us, but, their penalties wasn't as strong as ours. Ours were very confident, and I think, when you've got that experience behind you from the year previous to go into another shootout with the same similar magnitude, it all helps. It certainly helped us on that day.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, sorry to interrupt your flow then, Darren. So I imagine that's written you in folklore as far as all the Blues fans are concerned. You'll be a legend taking them back into the Premier League.
Yeah, again, it's something as a Birmingham fan, when people ask me about that, how I felt and how it still feels, I try and say to them, put yourselves in my shoes. The team you've supported all your life, you get to have a moment like that and be part of the club's history. And as I say, the years previous, we'd had a good run of 4 years of a real heartache with penalties, with playoffs. So as I say, that day at Cardiff, a lot of Blues fans, come up to me still to this day saying it was, emotionally one of the, the best days, of their lives. And so that's fantastic. That's everything for me, that it lives long in people's memories. So yeah, from that day, as I say, from making my debut, I felt like my life had changed off the field. But after that day, multiply that by about 100. I had sort of Sky Sports at my house the next day, trying to get interviews with my mum and my dad. They went to my school, like the local news in Birmingham went to my school, tried to interview my sister. They interviewed my headmaster. It was like a real story that, a local lad had, had been part of that. So yeah, it was chaos. It really was. And that summer was just, again, like I say, a real whirlwind of attention, from everybody, everywhere I went in Birmingham. Fans were coming up to me and wanting pictures and autographs, and I'd never experienced that ever in my life. So, I still couldn't drive at that time, so I was still catching the bus here and there. People would look at me, Blues fans see me on the bus, asking what you're doing on the bus. I was like, I can't drive. I haven't passed my test. So yeah, it was complete, chaos really, like 360 from what my life was like before that.
Brilliant. So into the Premier League following season, how was that for you?
Brilliant. Again, I came on in our first game. We got Arsenal away, first game of the season in the Premier League at Highbury back then. So you had Henry playing, Wiltord, Vieira, Bergkamp. It was, the full mix of what Arsenal had. And I came on in that game. So yeah, to be playing in the Premier League after only making my debut in the January, to be a Premier League player was special. And from that point on, really, it was kind of, I got exposed to it here and there. Steve Bruce was very sort of protective of me playing games and trying to sort of, because again, I'd only had probably 15 championship games under my belt to that point. And obviously going into the Premier League, he brought in a few more experienced players to obviously bolster the squad. So I found opportunities probably for that first season, the second season as well. Limited, but I still got exposed to being, at every game on the bench, played, a few games here and there. So for my development to be around that for seasons was fantastic, obviously.
And how long did you stay then at Blues? What was your next move after that?
So it was so the third season in the Premier League. Then I went on loan to Sunderland. So I played in a sort of a pre-season friendly, and the manager of Sunderland at the time, Mick McCarthy, was there watching. I had a very good game in the game he watched, and took me to Sunderland for half the season then, and Sunderland win the championship. So it was chances for me to go and get games again, get playing. And I was lucky enough that they were top of the league and flying, so I went there till January. Really enjoyed it up there. Again, first time as a young lad that I'd been away from home, sort of having then to move away from home comforts. I learned how to cook for myself. Learned how it was to be away from my family for the first time. So it was a great experience for me. I loved it, really embraced it. Again, was in a great situation. We were flying at the top of the table. And then in January, Steve Bruce called me back to Birmingham. And so be it. We had Villa away. Aston Villa is at my first game back, obviously a local derby. Went straight into the team for that. I think we had some injuries and some suspensions. And then played pretty much then the second half of that season. So it was really my best run in the Premier League in terms of games. We finished that season. And again, really where sort of things changed a little bit for me. I'd had a conversation with Steve Bruce, and he was willing obviously to extend my contract a little bit. I think I had a year left at that point. But he'd also said that he'd had a conversation with Brom Robson, who was manager at West Brom. And would I go and meet him? He said, it's totally up to you. Obviously, I want you to stay here at Birmingham, but I won't deny you an opportunity to speak to him. And as fate would have it, Brian Robson was a player that my dad had always said to me growing up to watch. He was one of my dad's favourite players. Brian Robson was playing, exactly the same position as where I was. The player that I wanted to be, doing both sides of the game. Obviously attacking, getting into the box, but also defensively. So to go and meet with Brian Robson, and it was kind of weird, really, and probably sums up Brian as a character, real down to earth guy. I met him in a beer garden in Coventry, I think it was. My agent at the time was Cyril Regis. So Cyril was obviously a West Brom legend. So to be sat there in a beer garden with Brian Robson and Cyril Regis.
It was a done deal before he even went, wasn't it then?
Well, that's it, yeah. And Brian was fantastic. Obviously, I was, a little bit in awe. There's this guy that my dad had told me to watch all my life growing up, and he was saying he wanted me at the football club. So after obviously long discussions with my family and my dad and stuff, it felt that maybe to go away from Birmingham, which I'd known all my life. I was 22 at this point. Might be just what I needed. So I made the transition, made the transfer to West Brom. And West Brom were in the Premier League at that stage, and that's where I had the pleasure then of meeting Jono. And again, I always say I was very fortunate at the start of my career to go into squads and into changing rooms where there were fantastic professionals. So as I say, you had Jono, you had Paul Robinson, Neil Clements, Darren Moore, guys who real stand-up pros, and for me to go from one great dressing room to another, it made the transition really really easy, really.
Did you follow Jono's nutrition plan?
I'm not sure I did at first, but no, again, like I say, he was great, and Jono was one of the guys. Obviously, you all know Jono. He made me feel really welcome. Himself and Paul Robinson were good friends, and welcomed me in. And again, obviously, I was relatively young compared to a few in there, and I think they knew, obviously, me moving away from Birmingham was a big thing for me. So they made me feel welcome. And
how did the Blues fans feel about you going to the Baggies?
Not too bad. I think the rivalry between Birmingham and West Brom is not actually as fierce. It's a local derby, but it's more Birmingham and Villa. West Brom and Wolves is their big derby. So Birmingham West Brom's not too intense. So it was okay. I think that the Birmingham fans understood my decisions for doing that. It wasn't too, they weren't too fierce on me.
Yeah. So you had some time at West Brom playing in the Premier League again. How was that, and what happened next after West Brom?
Well, that was probably where on the field was my first real a bit of adversity, I think, as a player. Everything had been really sort of the trajectory that I'd been on had been really positive. I went to West Brom. That's probably the first time in my career I suffered a bit of loss of form, a bit of loss of confidence, because I came in and played a few games, was in and out, but didn't really feel like I was playing my best football, and lost a bit of confidence. And it was something I'd never experienced before, something new to me. And obviously, having moved to a club for a transfer fee, there's a bit of pressure there as well. And I did get a few sort of West Brom fans who were critical, and probably rightly so at the time. The team, we weren't doing fantastically well in the league, so we were fighting down at the bottom end. So that was the first time I really had to experience that side of it. I remember sort of thinking at times, is this ever going to turn for me? Am I going to find that confidence again? And as the season progressed, I fought through it, managed to find a way, spoke to a lot of people, and had a lot of help as well from the lads, and managed to regain or find that confidence again. But unfortunately, the season ended in relegation for us, so we were back down in the Championship for the second season.
Right, we've got a question from Nelly, if that's all right, Cart. Yes, Nell.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned, Daz. What was the fee? I don't think you mentioned the fee.
The West Brom.
Yeah.
I think it was 1.75 million. Yeah. So
a lot of money back then, isn't it? Well, it's a lot of money now, but yeah, definitely back in those days.
Yeah, like I say, I think the fees now have obviously escalated a lot, and especially for young English talent. So yeah, back then, as I said, that sort of probably added a little bit of pressure subconsciously. I didn't really think about it too much consciously, but in the back of my mind, there was pressure, obviously, that this club had paid money for me, and I was there to perform, and I was probably underperforming. So yeah, that first year was a real challenge. The first adversity I'd had in terms of loss of form and confidence.
How did you cope with that, Cart? I know that social media wasn't what it is now, and so, but you're still getting whatever abuse from the fans, that kind of thing. How did you cope with that?
it really got to me at first. I've got to be honest. Because again, I had never experienced that. I'd been on the crest of a wave really at Birmingham, and probably was never going to get too criticised there because of obviously being a Birmingham fan and coming through. So to be exposed to that was, again, I look back and think was great for me personally and for my career, because I wasn't going to go through my career and not have that. So to experience it early and at such a big club. I had to sort of, look inside myself a bit, and that'd help as well. As I mentioned, the lads were great with me, encouraging me. Brian Robson was the same. He kept encouraging me and telling me, and probably took me out the firing line at the right times. A couple of games where I'd started, I think he'd seen maybe my confidence levels weren't there, and he brought me out the team. So I probably have Brian Robson to thank for that as well. But yeah, I think you just have to find a way and, mentally sort of get on the training field and just focus on what has got you success to that point. So for me, I was a box-to-box midfielder. I prided myself on working extremely hard, being a threat, as I said, in both boxes, doing my defensive work, but also being a threat going into the final third. So, just got my head down and focused really day to day on the training pitch, and things gradually turned for me.
Brilliant. And so, what was next in your career? You've had some really highs, and then you've had some disappointments. I know you've had some heartaches at Wembley and other places in playoff finals, etc.
Following season, the following season, obviously I mentioned we got relegated, but then we managed to get back to the playoff final the following year at Wembley and lost to Derby 1-0, and that's one of the biggest disappointments really, if I look back on my career, that the squad of players we had, and John will probably say the same, I felt like we should have maybe finished in the automatic promotion anyway, and to go to the playoffs then I really did fancy us to go up, and on the day we played very well and lost the game 1-0. So that was really hard to take. We had obviously Jono and Paul Robinson, Kevin Phillips, Diamanti Kamara, had a really talented squad of players, and to not go up that year was a real gut punch really. And that's when again it changed a little bit at the football club. Obviously not going back up, there was a lot of players that were in demand. I know Jono probably had a lot of interest, and I was one of them that probably I thought I'll be staying and staying at West Brom. There was a lot of transfer requests coming in, and clubs interested in our players, and we got back to the following year and pre-season, no one had really moved, and then all of a sudden out of the blue, Preston came in for me and offered money. Again, I spoke to Tony Mowbray, was the manager at the time then at West Brom. And again, he said, it's kind of your decision. I see you in my plans this year, but if you go and speak to Preston, and make your own mind up. So I went and spoke to Preston, and went up there. They went close the year before as well. They had a good squad up there, and decided to make the move up to Preston. So that all came about within 2 days. It was really, really quickly. And I think you probably hear a lot of players will say that transfers, can maybe go on for weeks, but on the flip side, things can happen within 24, 48 hours, and that's how it happened for me, going up north to Preston.
Big upheaval then for you.
Yeah, again.
Married at that point?
Sorry?
Were you married at that point, or was it just yourself?
No, long-term partner. My partner now, Sally, she was with me. So she was working in Birmingham. So it was, again, the first time that I'd actually have to move away from home. So I mentioned Sunderland earlier, but I was there for 6 months. I was in a hotel. So this was me relocating. So having to get a place and find an apartment up north in Preston. Obviously spending a lot of, my time up there. I was signing on a 4-year deal as well. So it was kind of like, right, this is me for the foreseeable future. It was, again, a little bit difficult in terms of, being on my own a lot, realising that, I'm 2 hours from home. It's not one where I can jump in the car really every day and be back and forth. So, it was great for me, again, off the field and, growing as a person. and went up north and really enjoyed it. Again, real different experience. The Northerners, good people. Embraced me up there at Preston, and had four again up and down years. Really had some really good moments and good runs, and then probably experienced a couple of lows as well. So it was again a real great experience looking back.
I think when we speak to all of the guys, and certainly the coaches on our staff, they've got similar stories. It's ups and downs in a professional career, and in any industry, I'm sure it's the same. But in football, the highs are so high and the lows can be so low. I imagine the highs are fairly easy to take and to cope with, but how do you cope with those real dark times? I know you picked up injury and were out for the best part of the season a little bit later, weren't you? How do you cope with those really difficult times?
Again, I think the experiences I had before that, obviously I mentioned at West Brom and then at Preston, I'd been up and down, but you call on past experiences really. And how I coped with that, as I mentioned, just getting my head down and focusing on things that I knew that had brought me success, knew that I was good at, and I knew, just having faith that it would turn. And that's one thing in football I've learned is, you can, be low 1 minute, but things can change very, very quickly, and from week to week, day to day. So again, I think you probably heard this a million times. Don't get too high with the highs and too low with the lows, and that in football you need to be like that. Just roll with the punches if you like. So I mentioned there I was at Leicester. I tore my adductor, so I was out for a year, and I was unattached. I wasn't signed with anyone, so I ended up back at Birmingham doing my rehab. And during them times, you do go through I was 27 at the time, so I was really focused on getting back and playing. But you do then start to think about, right, what will I do when football isn't in my life? And that's the first time that I'd sort of thought about that. I'd always in the back of my mind thought about going into coaching. I'd done a bit of media work at that point. So that was the first time really in my career that I'd sort of took a step back and gone, right, what will I do when I'm not playing anymore? And that's when I reached out to a few people who teammates of mine who had retired, and tried to get, as much advice and information off them.
Brilliant. I know you played within the England setup growing up as well.
Yep.
How was that for you? What kind of experiences? There's one famous one, isn't there, with a certain CR7?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, when I made my debut at Birmingham at 18, I'd been in an under-19 squad for England, but then as soon as I was playing first team football, that sort of propelled me then into the under-20s, and then I got a chance to go to it was Toulon, wasn't it? Yeah, Toulon tournament, which is quite a prestigious international youth cup. So went there with England, and our first game was Portugal. In the group, and a certain Cristiano Ronaldo was playing at the time, and I remember that there was a lot of hype around him. He was still at Sporting at this time, but there was a lot of hype and there was a lot of rumours about him going to coming to England. I think Man United had been mentioned at this point, and we ended up playing them. And I'll probably say the best way I can describe it is about 43 minutes. He's gone to go past me, and let's say it was a hefty challenge. I'm not saying it was a red card by any means, but the foreign referee took one look at me and gave me a straight red. That wasn't my finest moment. I was actually captaining the team as well, right, on that day. So funnily enough, made it to my Wikipedia page for a while, about getting sent off for a tackle on Cristiano. So not my proudest moment, but people do like to speak to me about that.
Did he give you a shirt afterwards or not?
I was in the dressing room, so I didn't even get a chance to. But as you'd expect, he ran the game that day. I think he scored maybe 2 goals that day. So, and it wasn't long after he went to Man United. So, I got probably fortunate. I got a glimpse of Cristiano up close and personal before he made his big move to United.
Yeah, and you're still playing and coaching now currently?
Yeah, I've made the transition. So as I mentioned, I'm from Solihull. So I came to Solihull a few seasons ago with a real intent to do both, to try and transition into coaching. So we have a sort of an academy, a football and education scheme here at Solihull that I've been part of now for the last 3 years. So coaching alongside playing. And I've loved every minute. Coaching was something I'd always, as I mentioned, thought about. But really wanted to try my hand at and see if I actually enjoyed it, see if I was any good at it. And I like to think that I've gone into it and feel like now that I'm in a great place with it. So it's quite nice now that I am transitioning from playing into coaching and kind of really enjoying giving back, if you like. Sort of now as an older statesman, younger players coming in. Obviously, we've got players in our squad that are sort of 18, 19, half my age, incredibly. So, for me to pass on my experiences, all the stuff I've mentioned here, to sort of, give them guidance and advice and help them in any way. I've found that really fulfilling.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much, Darren. Guys, if you've got any questions, if you just, as usual, if you want to pop them into the chat function, and Darren's happy to answer any questions that you may have. And yours, Jono, any questions for Carts?
No, just from me, just listening to Darren's story. I've known Darren numerous years. Playing alongside him when he first got his break. I know, just seeing him grow into the adult he is today. Going into his coaching journey. Just listening to his stories there, the ups and downs, all of them experience just build resilience, and that's one of the big things that you need both as a player and a coach, resilience, because you're always going to get it right, whether you do it on a pitch when you're playing or whether you do it as a coach. You always have to sort of reflect and maybe change little things now and again. So, for all our student athletes on, they're starting their journeys, they're building their resilience, them experiences that we're putting them through over the time with us, and hopefully some of them things, and listening to the likes of Darren and other people, that guests that we've had on, will help them in their own careers going forward.
Brilliant. Thanks, yours. Jono?
Yeah, just from me, I think really interesting to hear Cat speak. I think very similar to us all who have played the game. There's lots of highs and lows, like Yozza and Katz have mentioned. I think, like Katz mentioned, it's very important that, when the highs are high, you don't get too excited. When the lows are lows, you don't get too down. But, we're human beings, so it's hard to sort of like look after your emotions. I think with Katz was a top player. I think the best thing I can say about Katz is he was probably up there as one of the best trainers at West Brom when he came to West Brom. Proper professional, always doing extra, working hard, working on his game. Yeah, like he mentions, he might have had a lack of confidence in a few games, but he was a terrific player for West Brom. He was massively part of our squad. Like you said, the year we probably should have got promoted back to the Premier League when we lost in the playoff final to Derby. Was massively disappointing for everybody because we'd all worked so hard as a squad to get there. When you get relegated from the Premier League, it does knock your confidence. Obviously the fans and all the staff members want to be in the Premier League. It's the place to be. It's where all the money is. Everyone gets, reduction in wages. So you want to bounce back to the Premier League to get your money back up. And that year when we got relegated to the Championship, the first, I think, few games, we started off quite well, didn't we, Cats? I think we were fourth in the league when Brian Robson got sacked after 6 games. And I still remember to this day how gutted all the players was. I don't know if you remember, Cats, but how all the players were absolutely devastated when Robson got sacked. And I still remember when he walked into the change rooms and to tell everyone he was leaving. And I think that a few players were a bit emotional about it because we thought we had a real good chance of getting promoted. Like I said, we were fourth in the Premier League at the time. And then, Tony Mowbray came in and, everyone was gutted because, Robbo had gone, club legend, everyone loved playing for him. And then we had to sort of like roll our sleeves up, and he brought a different kind of game compared to Robbo. He was more of a, playing out from the back, attacking football, ball on the floor. We all tried to buy into it. And like we said, we were getting better throughout the year. We were winning lots of games. Carts were scoring loads of goals. We got to the playoff final. We were really confident. We absolutely bossed Derby off the pitch and ended up losing the game 1-0. And, after that, like he says, negative press, you're never going to get promoted playing the way you're playing. Players linked with moves away. I think, Kamara was linked with moves away. I was going to go back to Middlesbrough that summer with Gareth Southgate as manager, but it didn't happen in the end. And you end up staying, and obviously Carts went off to Preston to start his next pathway in his career. And we had to pick up the pieces again. We lost Kamara to I think he went to Fulham for £6.5 million. A few other players, and we had to rebuild again. And so you've gone from loads of getting relegated, loads of losing out in the playoff final, and you got to go and just roll your sleeves up and go again. And that year, we rolled our sleeves up. We carried on playing the same way, and we ended up winning the championship and getting back to the Premier League. So it's a really important message from Carts. You've got to be the hardest worker in the room. Simple as that. Even when the chips are down, the only way to get back to playing well is just doing what you do well. Keep working at it, and being humble as well. Being humble. Carts is one of the humblest lads I've ever met. He's had a great career. That's why he's still playing to this day, and he'll be a fantastic coach, I'm sure. And it was really nice to hear him. I hadn't spoken to Carts for a long while, but he'll always be one of my friends, and I was glad I played with him. So top man, Carts, well done.
Cheers, John.
Emotional here, John.
Nah, I don't get emotional, mate.
No, me. Right, we've got some questions in, Carts, if that's all right.
Yep.
From Eric, for the lows in your career, was it a small event in practice or in a game that would turn things around? What really helps getting you out of the lows, and what should they look to do if they're in a low period?
I think so. Yeah, as I say, for me it was the training ground. So just getting back on the training ground and just having a good few sessions. So obviously confidence on match day wasn't there for me, but I could then go away, be around the lads on the training field and sort of be right, focus on, as I said, what I was good at. And at the time I was box to box. I was, priding myself on getting in and around the final third and getting goals, assists, and just put, real grit in my teeth, really, that, this is what I'm about. I want to show this. I'm not showing it at the minute, but I can produce this and sort of, trying to G myself up, if you like. So I'll probably say it was the training sessions, just going into training sessions, coming out feeling like, right, today I've progressed, I'm back to, I'm doing things that I know I'm good at, and just building my confidence like that. And gradually, like I say, then when I went into a game day, it was sort of automatic, subconsciously, in my mind, I'm just doing the movements, I'm making the runs, getting into the areas that I want to get into, and trusting that, the hard work would pay off. And it did, as I say, it was as simple as that. And it is in football, when things aren't going for you, it's trusting the process and trusting in that hard work, that commitment, the attitude that you show, because trust me, it does get you to where you want to get to.
Brilliant, thank you. Question from Zach Carts is around this period of time during COVID, etc. Any advice for the players during kind of lockdown? We're able to do kind of one-on-one exercise, but any advice you'd give them to keep their kind of motivation and momentum?
Again, it's very difficult, obviously, at the moment, everyone being, at home and not having access to, to training facilities as we normally would, but trying to get in as much as you can in terms of fitness, do everything you can on that side of it. But, we're obviously fortunate that, the Premier League is still going on. All the top leagues in Europe are going on. And I always try and say to younger players now is watch as much football as you can. And yes, watch the games, but have a look at players in your position, study what they do, the top players, if you're a midfield player or a 10, look at your De Bruyne's, look at your Mahrez's, if you're a striker, look at the top strikers, in the Premier League at the moment who are scoring goals, Harry Kane, Vardy, all these guys. Don't just look at what they're doing on the ball, watch them, what their movements, the way they work. And I always say, the top players are not there just purely on talent. Yes, they are, have got great ability, but they've worked damn hard to be there, and they continue to do that. And how they work off the ball, your Liverpool's, Man City's, they work extremely hard. So, really is watch as much football as you can, and study players that play in your position, not only in possession of the ball, but what they do out of possession as well.
Brilliant advice, thank you. Question from Brad. As a former player and now coach, what do you think helped you the most? Was it your mentality, your physical ability, or your technical ability?
What's that, moving into coaching, or
as a player? I suppose,
as a player, sorry. I think probably, I think it's a balance of everything. Obviously, as I say, I always prided myself on being really super fit, being able to get about the pitch, but also then mentally knowing, what had brought me that success and not stepping away from that too much, but also, being willing to learn. And Jono touched on it there when Tony Mowbray came in at West Brom. He changed the style of play a little bit. We were a more possession-based team. We wanted us to have the ball. And he was the first manager really that had sort of said to me, Darren, you might be running a little bit too much. You might be making, runs when, you can hold your position a little bit, get on get on the ball, receive the ball a bit deeper. You don't need to be making as many runs as you are. So pick and choose. So yeah, just being open then to learning. And that did change my game a little bit. Instead of me sort of being, as I mentioned, when I was a young buck, alongside Hughesy running everywhere, all of a sudden then mentally, tactically, I realised that maybe I don't have to do as much running, and I can actually conserve some energy, and get on the ball a bit more, and then pick and choose when I make my runs. So yeah, just, being open to developing, to learning and adapting as well, evolving as a player. So, as I mentioned, more adept at coming back and being deeper, maybe playing more of a deeper, four, if you like, or defensive midfield player. And, in the last few years, I've dropped now back to a sweeper role a few times and playing at centre half. So yeah, I think it's a balance of both. Obviously, trusting your ability, and being, open to learning and developing and adapting.
Brilliant, thank you. A question from Justin, who was back in the US as well. What was it like playing at Wembley? And was the stadium full for the final?
Yes. So as we mentioned there, Jono said, the Derby game was full to the rafters, and it was amazing, really. Obviously, I don't think the new Wembley had been open for long. I think, it'd only probably been about a year. Excuse me. So that was, incredible. The pitch, as you'd imagine, was immaculate, big, very big, as I remember. So that was amazing. And then I went back there with Forest Green about 3-4 years ago now. Stadium wasn't as full as you could probably imagine. We played Grimsby, we brought about 20,000 fans. Forest Green, for those who don't know, is a smaller club sort of based in a village in Gloucester over here. And so we only had about 7,500 fans. So that was quite interesting to see the ground sort of half empty, if you like. But again, to play at Wembley, is special. The facilities there and everything. We'd been there the day before as well. Had a good look round, and it's a special place to play football.
Because you play the final against Norwich, was it Millennium? Was it? That's
right. Yeah. So while Wembley was being finished, there was a fair few years, wasn't there? I think obviously you also played in the Worthington Cup final the year before against Liverpool at Cardiff as well.
Brilliant. A question from Brad. How did you deal with the high expectations as a young player going into the men's game?
I think it's a case of, as I mentioned, I was very lucky that I had some fantastic pros there, Yozza and a fair other, few who were experienced, and just really the guidance from them. So, as a young player now, I always say, don't be afraid to go and speak to an older pro or a more experienced player and pick their brains, ask them, different things, advice. They'll always be happy to help you. And as I say, as I'm doing now, passing on their experiences, and they may give you like a little nugget of info or knowledge that you take away with you then that helps you. So yeah, the transition, you know, it is tough. Obviously, you know, the men's game is always going to be a bit more physical. You know, you're coming up against guys that are going to be fair bit older than you. So yeah, pick their brains. You know, players that you've got in your team are experienced. You know, always seek advice, because that's one thing as well that people look at and go, yeah, that's great that he wants to learn. You know, he wants to know how to get better. You know, it's one thing that managers look at, coaches look at. You know, I get a lot of calls now from people that I know in the game asking me about players. You know, what they're like, do they want to learn? You know, are they open to development? And so yeah, it's a big part of it. So yeah, pick the brains of whoever you can.
Brilliant, thank you. Question from Nelly, one of our coaches. Are there any players you played with who you thought were destined for big things but didn't make it, where maybe players with less ability but better attitudes, professionalism? He's thinking of Ravel Morrison and the likes.
Yes, yeah, he was one that sprung to mind. I did train when I was at Birmingham, rehabbing my injury, sort of 2 pre-seasons. Again, a player with undoubted ability. You know, someone that, you know, I think even if you talk to people like Wayne Rooney and, you know, some of the Manchester United guys who, you know, seen him as a young lad, you know, you can't believe that he hasn't had a sustained period at the top of the game. And it's probably one of the best examples that, you know, off the field matters just as much as on the field. You've got to be really dedicated and just, you know, be able to, again, stay balanced. And it's a shame, really, because you probably think Ravel Morrison will look back on his career and regret a little bit that he didn't have that sustained period. So he'd definitely be one. Again, you do see a fair few players on your journey through football that you look at and think, you know, they've got great ability, but, you know, off the field, are they dedicated as they possibly can be? You know, different things can tip them off balance. So as I say, off the field stuff is just as important as the on the field stuff. But he's definitely one. Ravel Morrison, I'd probably say, fits that category to a T.
Thank you. Question from Eric. In the position you're in currently, are you coach first or are you player first?
That's the big conundrum for me at the moment. As I say, obviously in times like this now during the pandemic and COVID, you know, everyone's having to adapt and football teams are, as you can see, it's disrupting a lot of teams and we're the same. So I was a coach, so it was Coach Cart's to start the season. But we did get a few injuries, and obviously we've been disrupted through COVID as well. So I've had to play probably 3 quarters now of our league games this season. And as I mentioned, I've moved back into a sort of a central role at the back. We play 3 at the back, so I've played sort of centrally as a sweeper or as a left-sided centre half. I can see Yozza and Jono looking, as to say, and they've never seen you there, Carts, but that's where I'm at now. So with the hair,
Easy for you, mate.
That's it, mate. With the hair, I'm like I pride myself on Paolo Maldini, so that's what I tell people. So yeah, at the moment it's a little bit of both, just filling in when I'm needed to. But thankfully, at the moment, we've got a lot of players fit. We've got a couple of players coming to the football club, so it's going to be Coach Carts, I think, for the next for the foreseeable anyway.
A new film to come following, no doubt. A question from Zach. What's the best tip you could give centre midfielders to help them dominate games more?
I think, you know, even since I've made my debut, I think that it's a pivotal position within a team, and in games, you know, you can often see games are dominated from that position. So again, I'd always pride myself on being, you know, as fit as I possibly can be. But again, you know, having different facets to your game as a central midfield player, you know, can you operate further up the pitch, be a threat going, you know, and making runs from deep, but also then getting on the ball and connecting the play really from back to front. But also don't neglect the other side of the game. So, you know, the nitty gritty stuff like second balls and competing, you know, being open to, you know, doing the ugly side of the game. That's one thing I think in the central midfield that you have to have. You know, different games will dictate this, but if you're one that can roll your sleeves up in a more physical game, and then also have the capacity then when the game's a bit more open to then get on the ball and dictate. So yeah, I'd really focus on obviously we want to be on the ball, we want to be able to showcase our passing and what we can do, but don't neglect that other side of the game. The basics, we probably call it. You're tackling, you're getting close to people, pressing, landing on second balls, and being a real driving force.
Brilliant, thank you. 2 final questions, if that's okay, Carts. One is, would you do anything different looking back at your career?
Again, I try not to have any regrets, because, as I say, I've met some fantastic people in football, and I've made some lifelong friends, as Jono says, and Yozza, and probably Jono mentioned it there. When I moved to Preston, we ended up just outside the playoffs, and West Brom went up as champions. So I can't lie, when I seen Jono on the pitch, celebrating, he was at QPR, weren't it, Jono?
Yeah.
I was thinking what could have been if I'd stayed. As I mentioned, Tony Mowbray had said to me I could have, it was up to me. So yeah, that was probably, looking back in hindsight, if I'd stayed, potentially would have been a championship winner, going back to the Premier League. But I think probably the biggest thing for me was just, I think I've always had that self-belief and trusting, as I said, the process. But as a young lad as well, just probably I was a little bit standoffish and could have maybe spoke up a bit more, and, as I mentioned, talked to older pros and pick their brains a bit more. I think I could have done that. So that's why I say I always encourage younger players now to really seek as much advice as you can. It help you develop. As I say, I try not to look back too much on the regrets. But that West Brom one, will probably sit with me forever.
Can imagine. Thank you. And finally, where would you like to be? Where do you see yourself in the next 3 years? I'm, as I say, really driven on enjoying the last bit of my playing career now. Any game time I get, I appreciate it so much. But ultimately, as a coach now, I want to really progress. And probably the advice I've just given there as a player, picking people's brains. I'm forever now speaking to my ex-managers, ex-coaches, and finding out, what it takes to progress in the coaching world. How I can become a better coach, and also then just looking back on my career, how can that help me, push players forward, help develop players. So within the next 3 years, I'd like to think I'm up there on, I've done a few more of my licenses, coaching licenses, and I'm a competent coach that's helping players develop. Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Carts. Thoroughly enjoyed speaking with you today. Spoke really, really well. Thank you for sharing your story with us and the guys.
Thanks for having me.
And wish you the very best of luck this season with Solihull and for the future. Top man.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Well done, Carts. Good to see you, mate.
And you, Jono.
Cheers for your time, buddy.
Top man.
Thank you. Very entertaining. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Carts. I'll give you a bell, mate.
All right. Cheers, Chris. Cheers.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for sorting.
Nice to see you guys.
Take care.